If you're a Porsche fan, someone who lives and breathes the brand, you're probably quite curious to know what the new 911 GTS is like. And if you're not, you're probably wondering what on earth a 911 GTS is and how it fits in amongst the myriad other versions of Porsche's iconic sports car. Hopefully this video will answer both those questions. But before we get started, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and give us a comment down below with your thoughts. Let's start with the second question. The GTS sits at the top of the Carrera range, the sportiest, fastest 911 you can buy before you get to the Turbo and GT models. The GTS starts at $334,900 for the two-wheel drive coupe, stretching to $387,700 for the all-wheel drive Targa, with all prices quoted in this video being before on-road costs. This one sits directly in the middle. It's a Carrera 4 GTS, the 4 standing for four-wheel drive, and it starts at $354,200, which is about 40 grand more than a Carrera 4S, but almost 80 grand less than a 911 Turbo. This one though, costs rather a lot more. And as we take a look around the outside and the inside, I'll point out all the bits that lift the as-tested price of this car to more than $400,000. Regardless of the options ticked, a GTS gets you bigger brakes from the 911 Turbo, a GTS-specific suspension tune that includes a 10mm ride height drop, and lots of blacked out bits including the front spoiler, wheels, badging and engine cover. Now in this spec you're looking at an extra $7.5 grand for the carbon roof, $7 grand for the active anti-roll bars, $5 grand for the front lift kit, $4.5 for the rear wheel steering, $4,000 for the Matrix LED headlights, and $800 to have the key painted the same colour as the car. It quickly adds up. The GTS also means an extra 22 kilowatts and 40 newton meters from the 3-litre twin-turbo flat 6 for totals of 353 kilowatts and 570 newton meters. Now, if you go for the rear drive GTS Coupe, you also have the option of a 7-speed manual, and I have driven it, but I'll discuss it in more detail when we go for a drive. All other versions come exclusively with the 8-speed dual clutch. 0 to 100 is claimed to take 3.3 seconds, 200 is gone in 11.8, and top speed is 309 kilometers an hour. Now remember, Porsche is notoriously conservative with its performance claims. Let's hop inside. The GTS interior is pretty much the same as the more regular Carreras, but has greater use of Porsche's eco-friendly suede material called Racetex. There are plenty of options in here, which I'll get to in a minute, but keyless entry and start, both surround sound stereo, heated electric seats and heated GT Sport steering wheel are all standard. Options on this car include 18-way adjustable electric seats, roof lining and sun visors in Racetex, a Porsche design version of the Sport Chrono clock, yellow seatbelts and Porsche LED courtesy lights. Initially, I didn't love the 992 generation interior. There are some really nice bits, the driving position is fantastic, and the way Porsche has kept the central analog tacho but flanked it with digital screens is a great touch. But whereas the Cayenne and Panamera use this area surrounding the gear lever for haptic buttons, the 911 just has these big expanses of black plastic. Now, a few years on, doesn't bother me so much, and everything you need is really controlled by these 5 buttons. Suspension stiffness, ESP, hazards, exhaust and nose lift. The latter not only protects the front spoiler, but you can save locations in the navigation and the car will automatically lift the nose when you reach them, which is clever. Porsche's communication management system is quick and easy to use, including wireless Apple CarPlay, wired Android Auto, digital radio, voice activation, sat-nav, Porsche Connect app capability, inbuilt Apple Music and more. The latest generation of Porsche's Infotainment has more accurate traffic information, and the voice control system now understands commands. Hey Porsche, I'm cold.
It will be warmer soon.
One area Porsche doesn't lead is in active safety equipment, though that's probably a conscious choice. There are 6 airbags and basics like AEB and blind spot monitoring, but there's no lane keep assist and active cruise control is a $3,500 option. A 360-degree parking camera is standard on the GTS, however. Strange as it may seem, the rear seats of a 911 are actually very important. There isn't much space back there, but both seats are ISOFIX equipped, so you can still carry the kids if need be, though getting them in and out is another matter entirely. There's also a storage compartment above the engine, though the main boot is in the front. It's not huge, but it's deep enough to carry a suitcase or a couple of small bags. Now all that sensible stuff is great. The main reason anyone buys a 911 is because it's revered as one of the world's great driver's cars. So does this new GTS live up to the reputation? The short answer is yes. Yes, it does. This thing is ridiculous. The long answer is a little bit more complicated. One question that's sometimes asked is that if all these 911s are now turbocharged, what's the point of a 911 turbo? Well, it's all in the way the different models are mapped. The 911 turbo is calibrated to give all its power at once, give you a massive hit in the back when the turbos come on boost. Whereas the Carrera models, including this GTS, deliver their power more progressively, mimicking the delivery of a naturally aspirated engine. And it works. But the two turbos fitted to this engine means it feels more like a 7 litre than a 3 litre. Punch the throttle, the response snaps you back in the seat, and the power continues all the way to 7,000 RPM. The GTS's outputs don't stand out as anything particularly special. Some rivals have another 100 kilowatts or so more. But it's tough to imagine anyone finding this thing lacking in pace. It is preposterously fast. Fitted with this 8-speed dual clutch, it revs so quickly in the lower gears that it can be hard to keep up with the changes. You can just leave it to its own devices and it works amazingly intuitively, or take command using the pedals. And what of the manual? Well, it certainly has an appeal. Having 7 gears takes a bit of getting used to. It can be easy to get lost, especially coming back down the box, but it's a really nice shift and it's certainly not a chore to use even in traffic. The GTS also has a specific exhaust that, when switched to sport, is actually quite loud. This is what it sounds like. It's aggressive and there's plenty of fireworks on the overrun, but I feel that with it off, it's mellower and maybe a bit nicer. Unsurprisingly, the 911 GTS is also unbelievably good to drive. It's the outright grip, the response to the steering, the power of the brakes, the traction, the control. It's all of the absolute highest order. It also seemingly has inexhaustible reserves. No matter what you do with it, it's basically never flustered. I can almost guarantee that you, the driver, will run out of puff before the car does. There is one question mark I have about the 911 GTS, and it's to do with this button right here. As mentioned earlier, this car, in fact both GTSs I've driven, have been fitted with active anti-roll bars, or PDCC in Porsche speak. Basically, it's a system that stops body roll. Now, on a PowerPoint presentation, this sounds great. If you stop body roll, you keep the car's weight better distributed across the 4 tyres, which means you can go around corners faster. Brilliant. Trouble is, body roll is one of the key messages a car gives you to tell you that it's working in corners. If you eliminate it, suddenly there's very little sense of what the car is doing, especially in tricky, slippery conditions. Initially I had it activated and I couldn't figure out why the car felt a bit weird. Happily, there are 2 very easy ways around the problem. First is to just untick the button. The second is to save yourself $7 grand by not optioning it in the first place. The other bugbear, which is common to basically all 911s, is significant road noise. There's just something about the car's configuration that means they're always pretty loud inside. That aside, it's perfectly habitable. The ride is firm but still very compliant, not at all difficult to drive, and that's kind of always been the brilliance of the 911. Outstanding performance and dynamics with everyday usability. The 911 GTS then is brilliant. One of the finest driver's cars you'll ever sample, brutally fast and yet daily usable with little fuss. But all that is true of the basic 911 Carrera, which is $75,000 cheaper. Yes, it's not ultimately as quick or as capable, but we're talking relative terms here. It's still an absolutely brilliant car that's possibly even more enjoyable on the road. Of course, you might want a GTS for the very reason it's not a basic Carrera, and great choice. Fantastic car. But if I was spending the best part of $400,000 on a 911, we're tempted to stretch for a GT3 or a turbo. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to the Car Sales channel, and leave us a comment down below with any cars you want to see us review.